Welcome to the Multifamily Method, a podcast that explores the state of the multifamily real estate market and some of the backgrounds and words of wisdom of today's most successful multifamily real estate entrepreneurs. I'm Jad Risha, and thanks for joining us. Today, we're going to be interviewing James Roberts and Will Hancock from Brazos Residential. They are the co-founders and managing partners, and Brazos focuses on value-add and opportunistic acquisitions in high-growth markets throughout the Sunbelt region. James and Will have extensive and broad-based experience in the multifamily industry, having been debt and investment sales brokers. Today, they'll provide us with some insight into how they both got into the business and how Brazos was founded. Welcome to the podcast, guys. Will, James, nice to meet you guys and happy to have you all on the podcast. Look forward to our discussion today. Before we get into, backgrounds and some of that, just the elephant in the room, which we were just talking about, is, how are you guys staying busy these days and navigating these choppy waters?
Yeah, no, they're definitely choppy. That's for sure. Fortunately for us being a growing company, if you're not focused on acquisitions, there's a lot of operations that you can focus on. So we're spending a lot of our time kind of fine-tuning deals on the operations side, growing the team out, and just making sure our process is strong and well-defined. That being said, we do have about 800 units under contract in the Dallas-Fort Worth area right now. But, in this market, obviously, you want to pick and choose the deals you're doing, but you also have to have a stomach for it and prepared to get beat up a little bit. So we like to limit our pain exposure to a few deals at a time right now.
Yeah. Wow. Are you getting beat up, or is the seller getting beat up? I mean, which way is it go? Everybody's getting beat up,
that's
right?
The best part about this market is there is no safe person. The seller's getting beat up, buyers getting beat up, lenders, so it's just a, bloodbath of brawling. It's, everybody looks for the utter distress and it's not quite there. People are looking for, the bottom, saying like, well, all these institutional equity partners we'll be back in. We got all this dry powder sitting on the sideline. Well, let us know when we get to the bottom, and we'll tell you when you're, 6 months behind.
Yeah, it's the interesting thing is, you talk to five guys these days, and everybody's sort of pontificating, right? Because first of all, there's not a lot of activity, so we're all, we all have extra time on our hands, unfortunately, and then there's not a lot of data points out there to really tell us what is the true market these days, right? I mean, not a lot's been trading. You're starting to see more inventory on the market, but candidly, most of the stuff that we've seen get listed doesn't appear to be at a high probability cap rate, I would call it. So there's not a lot of data points to really get a true sense of the market. And then when you get to start talking to people, everybody's got a different opinion on what a market cap rate is, what a market cap rate should be, what an insurance underwriting number should look like. You guys are experiencing similar to what we're experiencing in Florida. So I guess, in the effort of adding two more opinions to the atmosphere, what are your guys' thoughts on just, sort of the general state of the market?
So, I think that it's interesting. When Will and I formed this company, we actually saw, we were in a hyper bull market previously in 2021. That's when we made our exit from investment sales and commercial mortgage brokerage. So I'm not saying that we saw the writing is on the wall, because we certainly did not, but we realized, this is an extremely seller-friendly environment. Can't be like this forever. We might as well form the company and, go out and start buying deals. Easy way to say that is we were praying that there would be a pullback, right? We had our fingers crossed. Let's get a pullback. We'll go find some value. It'll be great. Build our portfolio in a downturn. Well, lo and behold, it actually has come to fruition. But the funny thing about a pullback is that everyone gets very, very nervous very quickly. So, in the markets we're looking in, you can buy at on the low end, 15%, maybe as much as 25% discount to where the assets were trading first quarter of 2022. And, cap rates, depending upon the market you're in, have expanded, 50 bips to maybe even as much as a full point in some markets. But the difficult thing for a lot of groups is just having the nerve to dive in. They'll back the truck up when everyone's backing the truck up and we're all buying 3 caps together. But when you can actually go out and, find some reasonable cap rates and the pricing is coming down, it's just tougher to do that. So I think that our thought process is that we want to buy throughout all points of this year, and knowing we're not smart enough to know where the bottom is, but we know that the assets we're buying right now are significantly discounted to where they would have been a year ago. So I hear a lot of talk from people that the end of this year, beginning of 2024, that's when you want to dive in. But the problem with that is literally what everyone is saying.
Right.
So if everyone is saying that, it's going to create competition. So who knows what that will bring.
Well, and that's the thing is that, what is the bottom going to look like? I don't know, because there still is a ton of, dry powder, for lack of a better term, out there. And there are a lot of people that are, have the capacity, but for a cloudy, financing and really debt environment, because there's plenty of equity out there. It's just, what's the debt going to look like? But I think, you're going to be, whatever the range, the new cap rate range is going to be, I still think it's going to be incredibly competitive within that range, because there are going to be, a lot of groups that are going to be coming back to the table when, they sort of feel like the time is right to do so. And some will miss it, and some will come in later, and some will come in earlier, and that kind of stuff. But generally speaking, I think, to your point, there's going to be some competition because there's equity.
Right.
So where do you all get your equity from for, so actually, before we do that, why don't you give us the background of yourselves and, the inception of Brazos, and then we can start to get into maybe some of the more nitty gritty on how you guys operate.
Yeah. So I'll kind of give you my background and we can kind of talk through Brazos. So I kind of came up through the multifamily space in terms of starting day one. So 2009, start working as in an actual apartment community, went through leasing, make readies, maintenance, all the way up to kind of handling some assets through workout, almost quasi like an asset manager kind of role through some of the, dislocation from 2009 to 2012, and ultimately kind of saw all that piece of it. Skipped around after that and kind of ended my previous career with James at Northmark, where I was doing debt and equity. So you asked a perfect question, which will segue into kind of where our money comes from. But ultimately, I met James at Northmark. We worked together for a handful of years. As we would kind of look at it, he would bring in the pig, I would slaughter it, kind of a mentality where I was really financing a lot of the business that James and his team was selling. And we kind of formed our relationship from there.
Yeah, and a little bit about my background. I entered the multifamily business in 2008. So right when the great financial crisis was coming, it was on the asset management side of multifamily. Really, I think my path to multifamily was primarily driven by the fact that multifamily was the only asset class that was getting any type of traction between 2008 and 2011, and albeit it was very slim at that time. So I bounced around from asset management. I started at Northmark on the commercial debt side, brokerage side, went to asset management at PNC Bank, and the bulk majority of my career was spent as an apartment sales broker. Formerly at Transwestern, we were brought over to Northmark, spent 10 years there, and we brokered workforce housing, 60s, 70s, 80s vintage assets throughout Dallas-Fort Worth. Super high octane team. We had approximately a 45% market share at the time. And Will and I worked together on, I think, 80,000 units over a 4-year span, and got to know each other through that, and started buying smaller deals on the side with friends and family. And that was kind of the thesis of how Brazos got started.
When did you guys start to have these conversations about doing Brazos or whatever?
I wish we could say we planned it out. It was some long scheme that kind of grew for a year. One of our employees always says, hey, if you're going to get divorced, you should really plan for that divorce, well before you're going to do it. We didn't do that, right? So James and I knew we liked each other. Ultimately, we were, colleagues more than we were friends at the time, but we had, seen some success on the deals that we did. And ultimately, 2021 was a crazy year. It was so busy. I was so tired of just the workflow, right? We were so busy, constantly grinding. I mean, you know what that's like.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I kind of like James. I was like, man, is this what I really want to do? We've been successful with this. Both of us had this kind of thought process of in the future we would do this, and something just clicked, and we're like, you know what? Let's leave like Tom Brady and leave on top the first time, and just we literally, it was mid-December. We just said, hey, we're done, and 2 weeks later we were out.
Yeah, people thought we were absolutely nuts, right? Because it's 2021.
Right.
It was our best year, I think, as a firm. It was both of our best years professionally. And, we said we're going to go start a startup and go out and buy apartments. And, we had done probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 small deals, little 30, 50 unit deals on the side. And we'd seen success and knew that we could operate them. But, we just jumped in feet first, kind of betting on ourselves. And, we have an entrepreneurial spirit and nature, I feel like. And I feel like it was not so much, I feel like there would have been a great deal of regret had we not done it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes a ton of sense. And it takes a lot of balls, frankly, to do it when you did it, because, the whole idea, I mean, you see when the market gets soft and gets quiet, you see a lot of guys leaving the business, but
right.
You don't typically see, brokers leaving the business when the deal flow is at an all-time high and the checks are rolling in hand over fist. Right. I mean, ideally you if you're going to do it, you close your last deal, you close at the end of the cycle. And then you go, your first deal you buy is on the way down or on the way or at the bottom. Right.
Right. Yeah. I think in retrospect, like perfection timing, maybe it was late summer of 2022, but we were within 6 months of that, and it allowed us to build out like a legitimate company with highly qualified folks, and that stuff just takes time. So over a year, we've been able to bring 15 folks on board, and we actually have a machine here that can take down deals that if we enter a distressed environment.
Okay, cool. So just for the people that are listening, where do you own, and sort of what is kind of the overarching investment thesis for Brazos?
Yeah, so strategy wise, so we kind of run a dual strategy. So the first strategy is basically the value add strategy, what James and I have transacted on time and time again, buying 60s, 70s, 80s, even 90s deals that are, either deferred in nature, long-term owner, some dislocation to the market, right? Taking those, injecting capital, raising rents, reposition, sell. So that's just the normal value add strategy, lipstick on a pig that everybody's been doing for, since the run up. The other strategy, which used to be the most favorable strategy that people just don't talk about and hadn't been able to talk about, was the true yielding strategy, right? So effectively buying long-term deals with long-term debt, putting it away, and basically your coupon clippers, right? We brought on our CIO who came from Monarch Investments. They own 70,000 units. He worked with them since the time they had 6,000 units, spent the last decade growing out that exact strategy. So we think that barbells our risk and gives our investors, whether they be institutions, individuals, and kind of everybody in between, the ability to get to work with us on both sides of the coin, whether you have big multiples versus, long-term cash flow.
Yeah, I think one thing we just found is that, the deal with value add is that there's really no cash flow in value add.
Right.
Very, very, very difficult to buy a property that's truly underperforming and produce cash flow. At least it has been in this run up because of where cap rates were. But the other side of that is investors want to see a distribution. They want to see yield. So this kind of longer term fixed rate bucket where you're really targeting, cap rate more than upside. We prefer it to have some upside, but not a big lift. We think that's more than likely going to be the direction of our firm, in at least a 50% capacity moving forward, in addition to the value add.
So what does that look like from a deal profile perspective?
So we have one under contract right now. It's in Dallas, Fort Worth. It's a 80s built property, 172 units. And, we're going out and buying it on a 575 cap, which astonishes me considering that cap rate was 175 bips lower this time last year. So we think we found a deal on the buy, which is obviously paramount because you do make a lot of your money on the buy. But we were able to go out and find fixed rate Fannie loan at 5.1%. It's a 10-year deal. So we're positively levered going in. And it will produce a 7% current coupon that we can grow over time. These are not the sexiest business plans, right? It's kind of steady Eddie. Right. But we think long-term wealth creation comes through owning real estate, and for a long term, not just 2 to 3 years. So, that's projected to be, I think, a 3x over a 10-year period with a, 7, 8, 9% coupon, depending upon the, NOI generation we can provide. But, that's what we're looking for. And we'll go to other markets trying to find that. A lot of times to find a good cap rate, you're going to have to go to some tertiary and secondary type markets, but chasing yield with fixed rate is going to be something we're very interested in moving forward.
Yeah. And, the other thing is like, we are very focused on our value add business in core areas, right? So what we've realized is it's very hard to necessarily do a large CapEx plan in some of these secondary, tertiary markets. The labor force is different. Materials are harder to come by. But to run and operate to perfection in some of these secondary markets, like you can do that, right? You can desktop it. You can work through a lot of issues. You can layer on technologies that maybe the mom and pop owner in this secondary town didn't utilize and create actual value. But it's a safer way for us to be able to transact on a larger area without having to do these big CapEx projects in, the secondary, tertiary markets.
So this 5.75 cap rate, 2 questions. What was the profile of the owner that you bought it from, and was it a fully marketed deal?
Yeah, so I'll back up a little bit just to kind of give you some perspective. Last year we bought 15 assets, about 2,800 units, all off market. So that's a huge component of our business plan.
Yeah.
We're not interested really in going and beating the entire market. And I think that, to go to your equity, there needs to be a story, and the off-market story is one that everyone likes to hear. So, we have strategies with brokers we work with where we will target a particular asset in a particular submarket, and there's a reason we've targeted that submarket. And usually we're looking for, under-rented properties, under-managed properties. So it's not like, we're going after a particular deal and trying to figure out how to court that seller and how to convince them to sell. And usually that's by bringing an offer unsolicited. So that's how it worked on this deal. We knew the seller from our previous life. They're a very reputable firm, a large, Texas-based owner. They are kind of transitioning their portfolio into newer construction assets. So I think that, they're happy to be done with their business plan and maybe move some of those funds into some of their newer properties they're purchasing. And for us, it made all the sense in the world because I feel like the price per pound was there, cap rate was there. We know the seller, know kind of how they operate. And we know that there is some opportunity in the deal that we're buying. We think both operationally and just from a management perspective.
So,
but yes, we had a broker, basically take the offer to the seller and prompt them to sell on that one.
So then as a broker, I know, we're all very competitive. How has your new endeavor been received by your former competitors in the marketplace? Are they hunting deals for you? Are you working with them, or are they sort of freezing you out?
Well, so everybody asked, why did 2 Texas guys start buying up Eastern North Carolina like it was a fire sale? And I mean, you hit the nail on the head, right? It took people some time, James more so than me. I mean, this was their direct competition. Like they were all pitching for the same deals. It took them some time to realize, like, we're not the enemy. Like, here's our track record. We closed every deal we put under contract. We did the right things. Like we are transactable buyers. And then we bought a couple deals from other brokers who had nothing to do with us. And then it's like, oh, okay, these guys are real. They're going to keep doing this. And, you get to buy 3,000 units in a year, and people take note that, well, last year was a extremely hard, tumultuous time for people to buy and finance deals. And we closed everything we put under contract. And then, the rest is kind of James going out and doing the lunches with the brokers and saying, I nice to meet you after 10 years of competing.
Right.
Now
Right.
we want you to bring us deals.
I promise you'll get the deal back. I'm not just going to give it back to my old colleagues, right?
Yeah, so these are the exact things that people would say to us. And
yeah,
what I would tell them is, look, I left a business that I spent 10 years building. So this was well thought out. And I know that if I, go buy deals from you and kick them out to my former partners, like that's not a sustainable business model. So I think it took about a year for people to come around to it. But fortunately, like Will said, a lot of our activity last year was in North Carolina, where we didn't have any of those issues. And then in Dallas, Fort Worth, the brokerage community has been very receptive. And I think also on the brokerage side, you're either a lifer as a broker, right? You do it your whole life and it's usually very, very good to you. Or at some point, a lot of brokers will move on to the principal side. So I think a lot of the guys I was talking to, guys and gals, were, they were more inquisitive than anything about, maybe because they're thinking about it in their future. So it's been interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something that's, we've seen some guys like leave and not many though. Most of the guys in our market have been lifers, but every now and again, you'll see some, some of the guys hop and start their own thing. And you always wonder what are those conversations like behind the scenes?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that I think you come to appreciate about brokerage when you're out of brokerage.
That's right. That's right.
So, it can feel like a grind when you're in it on the day to day, and each year restarting to zero and having to, earn your keep each year, which can get tiresome. But I think that the risk profile for brokers is very low, right? You do your deal, you make your commission, you move on down the road. So adapting to the risk profile has been something that, it just comes with the business. But each side has their pluses and minuses for sure.
Yeah. So what do you think, what would you guys each say? Because you've come from different aspects of brokerage. What would each of you say has been the biggest challenge leaving brokerage, heading to the principal side, and maybe the biggest or maybe the most pleasant surprise of doing so?
Yeah, I think the most pleasant surprise for me is being able to control your own destiny, right? When you work in a brokerage capacity, you can know the right thing to do, the right thing to say, but ultimately your client is going to dictate what they think and they decide to do. For us, we can make all the decisions, good or bad, for us and our investors, but they're our decisions. We have to live with them. We bought rate caps. We did these things. Like, here's the reason why. And I think that it is a breath of fresh air to be able to really dictate your own future, without anybody impairing your thought process there. So for me, that's the biggest pleasure.
Yeah, I think for me, the toughest thing has been just the burden that comes with, taking capital, right? That's a huge responsibility, and we don't take that lightly. So just, performing and everything we can control, we want to do to the highest degree possible. Now, there's a lot of things in this market we can't control, but the operations, the staying on top of your deals, being, good owners, we want to do those things well. So I think that that's been something that has been a process of coming around to that responsibility that comes with that. But yeah, I mean, I think that there's just some, I don't know, you have some pride in building something from nothing, from scratch, and seeing it evolve and seeing employees be hired and, just the firm growing. I think I get a lot of satisfaction from that. And just creating something, I mean, ever since I graduated college, whatever it was, 15 years ago, I always knew that I wanted to create something. So just being able to finally realize that has been kind of a dream come true.
Yeah. And my side, on the harder part, I can tell you, we came from a very big dynamic team. James' team on the investment sales side was large. My team on the, debt platform was large. Coming over to starting this, something I never realized, but like, you hear people talk about entrepreneurship is lonely, right? You go through a lot of battles, you get all this. And I mentioned at the beginning that, James and I were more colleagues than, friends. It wasn't like we were hanging out on the weekends. We were there to work and work hard. But I could only imagine doing it without a partner who is really there and trying to, have somebody as a sounding board. But gosh, man, you go from a big dynamic team to two people in a room trying to solve problems when you're the only employees at the company. And
Right.
that is a drastic change. And I think, we've grown a lot because of it, but that's those things that nobody tells you about. And if they do, you can't comprehend.
Yeah. So what was, so when did you guys hire? Where in the stage of the firm did you start hiring your first employees? How many units had you bought and what triggered that decision? And what was the role? Sorry. And what was the role that you hired?
So I think that when we formed the company, we had the benefit of seeing some of the most successful sponsors in the country, right? Because they were our clients.
Yeah.
We saw many groups go from owning nothing to 3 years later owning 10,000 units.
Right.
And so we got to see the good and the bad, and we kind of implemented the good and tried to stay away from the bad in the formation of the company and what our plans were. We knew we wanted to hire people with experience. We didn't want to hire folks right out of college because there's the training period that comes, and we just didn't have that luxury of time when you're starting out with a company with 5 deals under contract. So our first hire was our kind of senior analyst. We hired him from Bracadia. And then after that, we hired our director of operations from Lincoln Property Company. And from that point forward, we've hired 15 people. And I would say that at least 75% of them have 5 years or more experience in the multifamily business. Our COO has 25 years experience in the multifamily business. So it was rapid and quick.
Yeah. One thing we didn't touch on, which I know you'll talk about, where are we going, right? But one thing, when James and I started out this partnership, we had two directions we could have taken it. It could have been James and Will, lone wolf in it, buying our small little deals. And we both oddly looked at each other before we started this and said, you know what, I really want to grow a monster of a company. I'm not super interested in just buying, a couple little deals and doing it here local and just be some Dallas guys. Right. So we started off with that mentality of, one thing we saw people do wrong, which was under hire. And everyone said, oh, you got to keep your, cash outlay really low. You got to conserve and just be really, gritty on that. Well, I can tell you, that's a great strategy for some people. For us, having to be able to sleep at night and have a fiduciary responsibility to our investors, we wanted to spread that out and spend money and hire and attract good talent so that we could grow to the level that we want. And I think that was evident from day one, is that we knew there would be a large cash outlay from us. We're risking it all, betting on ourselves. But, having that staffing was a little different. I mean, there's not many people that own 15 deals and had 15 employees, right? That sounds crazy when you say it, but it prepared us for the next stages of growth.
Well, and theoretically, when you do it that way, shit doesn't fall through the cracks because you're understaffed, right? Like you're minding the shop.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
I think in this environment too, it paid dividends, right? Because you can find fires all day, every day. Yeah. So having the staff here to be able to support us, and that has been huge.
Yeah. So what was the first deal you guys bought? Tell me about the deal. And if it doesn't have an interesting story, then give me a deal that you guys bought that does have an interesting story.
Yeah, no, this one does have a great story. So, okay. All right, we're here, and James and I it was literally right before Christmas. We decided, like, hey, who knows when we're gonna leave, but we bought some deals on the side. Let's go try this out and buy some bigger deals.
Still employed.
Working. It's just like, hey,
no restrictions in your
no restrictions.
Okay. We could buy deals, and this was that kind of thing. It's like, all right, well, let's go buy some stuff. So James starts poking around North Carolina, ends up getting with a broker, finds some deals, and we think have merit. Broker's like, hey, if you guys want these, you got to go. North Carolina, hottest market in the world. These are off market. Like, I can go execute. So this is the day before Christmas Eve.
458 units.
458 units in Fayetteville,
that's your first
North
deal?
Carolina. Yeah.
3 deals put together.
So I jump on a plane the day before Christmas Eve, and it's snowing in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Of all places, snow. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Crazy kind of thing. Jump on the plane. My plane gets stopped. We land back in Charlotte. We get back on the plane. We're circling around Fayetteville. Finally, there's enough clearance where we can go land. I'm like 2 hours late. I'm texting the broker. He's like, man, I can be here like 30 more minutes. But other than that, I got to go drive back to Raleigh. So I get there. I look at the deals, walk through the deals quickly. I look at the broker. I said, all right, we're in. Shake his hand, get back on a plane. This guy thinks we're crazy. We come back to Dallas, and it's time to go, execute on the deals. I end up landing at like 2 a.m. that night, the next day, which is Christmas Eve. And my wife's like, is this what this is going to be like for you? And I said, no, just wait and see. And it's been like that ever since we left.
The funny thing about it is a very surreal experience to, be a debt broker and a apartment broker. And you're leaving your company and you're actually physically in North Carolina. And then you're signing a contract with $500,000 hard and just betting on yourself that you'll get it done.
Yeah. Yeah. And at this point, do you have equity commitments?
Yeah. So, for us, it's like we have never bought a deal. I wish we had the luxury of having just some LP who just writes checks and everything is simple, right? Ultimately, the market and the dynamic has changed where we started the company saying, yeah, we have some equity relationships. And the first, official closing was not the first deal we put under contract, but we were able to close one deal sooner than the three.
Right.
That was one single check writer, LP, private equity group out of Houston did that deal. And they've been a phenomenal partner for us. But capacity, right? Things changed all through the year where people's boxes were moving, institutions are sidelining. Right. And yeah, I mean, we have yet to have a true programmatic partnership. We keep finding LPs who want to do a deal, and then they, for whatever reason, then it comes time to the next deal, and they're like, well, our box has changed, and now it has to be a 12 cap that we can, get negatively levered on. Like, okay, yeah. Cool.
Right. Well,
so, yeah.
I mean,
it's been a wild ride on the equity side, right? When we formed the company, our goal was just to work with institutional joint ventures, and they've been out of the market since basically
when you started. Yeah, 3 months after you started, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So now when you're buying a deal, is it high net worth kind of friends and family money, or how are you?
I would still tell you it's still a hybrid approach for us, right? Because we're still ultimately, in order for us to scale to the level we wish to, we will have to utilize some programmatic partnerships. And every deal we buy, we still put up the money, we still go do it just like normal without a partner in tow. And we go talk to the partners that we have and that we know and are meeting, that people are coming back in and saying they're back in the markets. And ultimately, I mean, we had a huge, $1 trillion plus fund about to do our deal in Dallas, and the wind blew the opposite direction. We get the call at 5:00 on Friday, and they say, hey, we know closing's in a month, but we just don't think this is our deal anymore. And, it's a tough situation to go through, but that's just kind of fluid. I don't necessarily say, oh, these are bad guys. They don't know either, right? Everybody's trying to figure it out.
Right.
But then Monday morning, we meet with an individual who, says yes to the $20+ million check, right? So it's just, you catch your breaks where you can.
Right. So let's just take another step back, because I always like to kind of do this. How did you guys decide you wanted to be in real estate? Whether it was early on or coming out of college, like each of you, how did that decision come about? Was it conscious, or was it sort of, hey, there's something an opportunity presented itself?
Well, I'll kind of announce Will here. So Will is a very unique person. So most debt brokers that you find are like kind of bankery and corporate guys.
Yeah.
And, kind of not too fun to talk to. Will is the consummate salesman. So I'll let Will give you some of his background, but this is a salesman guy here.
Yeah. So, that is totally true. James' story is easy. His family is, in real estate, so there's less excitement. For me, I started out a true like lower middle class, kid, grew up in a suburb of Dallas, never needed for food, but, we were just kind of in that lower middle class tier. My dad was a car guy, was a GM of a dealership and had worked in different capacities, but ultimately he was a sales guy too. I graduated high school. Instead of going to college, I went and sold cars. I was one of the top 10 salespeople for Nissan nationwide. This is 2007. Everything's getting, heated up, and that whole world ends, right? And I ultimately said, all right, well, now's my opportunity to go to college. I had the luxury in the car business. Everybody goes and finances cars, right? They get a credit app. They write down their income.
Right.
So I'm seeing this for every deal. And I'm like, there's one common thread and theme. It's like these guys who are in real estate, they make money. Like they are rich guys cashing checks. And I was like, I got to figure this business out. So ultimately, I go to college, go to Texas A&M, start working for an apartment community. Because I'm like, hey, I know that, single family, it's all getting wiped out, right? The whole world is over. Maybe this is my opportunity. And ultimately start learning all the facets of this. And I knew real estate was a business that I could make money in, and I'd seen it and I had a fascination with it. Ultimately, fast forwarding, graduate college, say, hey, I want a real estate job. And everybody said, well, dude, there's all these people who just got laid off all this time. You have no real experience. We could pay you 40 grand a year. Well, I tell you, I was making, 6 figures as an 18-year-old kid selling cars. So I literally graduated high school or college again, went back to the car business, worked for AutoNation on, a large scale for them through some of the corporate stuff. And ultimately was just tracking my entrance back into real estate. Really networked, grew, went back in, got a brokerage job, and ultimately made that full transition. But I had always just, for me, gotten that fascination with, multifamily from the very beginning, knowing that it was a very profitable, allure that I was kind of chasing. And then you really start to get in the weeds of it. And you're like, hey, this is not rocket science. I don't have to be so intelligent, so cerebral to be successful. You just have to work really hard, which is awesome.
Yeah. And not a lot of guys, not a lot of debt brokers start out in a leasing office either.
Yeah.
I'd say I think you're probably the first one I've met like that. So what's, all right. So we own how many units now?
We own 2,800 units right now with 800 units under contract.
Okay. And we've done all that in about 18 months, right?
Yep.
We've got 15 employees. So what's the next 12, 24, 36 months look like?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing to talk about is kind of the, pieces that we can control, right? We really focus in on the value add deals, was the construction component, right? We get out of the gate, and ultimately for us, the construction was somewhat of a nightmare, right? You get all these tradespeople who are subbing it out to these other people, and turn times go to, weeks instead of days and months instead of weeks. And it just is a nightmare solution. So ultimately, we've been refining and building out kind of that construction vertical for us. So I think the most immediate thing that we're really spending a lot of time, and really James is spending a lot of time on, is building out that construction vertical, because we've got $50+ million of construction projects going on right now.
Yeah.
And that's just a ton, right?
How are you? Sorry. Are you seeing any easing on the labor front or materials cost, or really, I mean, just sort of is it getting any easier to execute? Is the pricing coming in at all? Is there any relief on the construction side from 12 months ago?
Yeah. I mean, I would say that oddly enough, like the pricing is kind of the pricing, right? I mean, it doesn't really vary that much between providers. The only real time you're going to get a meaningful discount on supplies is if you go overseas, which we have done that. So, that's a known fact in each deal, is what things are approximately going to cost. We're playing in the market we're in. The labor side is, I think that's what separates the good from the great. Being able to assemble, work crews that can move quickly and efficiently and not have to, go back and repair their work. That's something that, when we're starting out, right, and you're trying to find the contractors you work with, that's a tough process. But, 1 year later, we have the groups in the markets we play in that we know how they execute. They're familiar now. So the labor is definitely the most difficult part of the whole construction game right now. That's the thing. If you find good folks, you got to figure out how to keep them, because, I think a lot of people just focus in on, compensation, cost, all that kind of stuff. But having good crews makes all the difference in the world in a deal.
Are you using third-party GCs on these deals, or how are you?
Yeah, so you kind of talk about the forward look, right? So we have been using third-party GCs. We are starting to bring all that stuff kind of in-house. Right. Some of it's still getting subbed out to some of the GCs we were working with. But ultimately, yeah, we now in Texas have labor forces that, directly work for us as 1099 contractors, so that we really can control our kind of full destiny on some of that stuff.
Do you have a director of construction?
Yeah, so a guy named Wes Love kind of runs all our construction vertical for us. Oddly enough, Wes and I were actually working on some development deals before we started this firm, just kind of as a side project. But Wes had a full-time job working for one of the largest home builders in the U.S. and just kind of worked out that he happened to be my old neighbor. So we were working on some of this side stuff, and I'll tell you, from all people who took a leap of faith, he went from being my neighbor. I moved away, and I came to him and said, "Hey, look, we're starting this thing. We're going to grow out of a big construction vertical. Why don't you quit your very high-paying job for a large multinational and come work for two bozos who know nothing about construction?" And he took the leap of faith, and he's still here today. So I guess it worked out well for him.
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I think, from my perspective as a broker and haven't been around the business a lot. I mean, I think that's the thing or the aspect of the business where I find most owner operators, acquisition guys, whatever you want to call it, to be the sort of the weakest, is understanding the construction aspect of it.
Right. Yeah,
Wes will tell you that he saw our budgets for the first few deals. He's like, "You want me to do what with what?" You guys realize like appliances cost that much.
So we used to I remember underwriting as a broker a value add deal and be like $5,000 or $6,000 a unit.
Every deal, every unit, no matter how big it is, where it is, when it is in the cycle, it's anywhere from 5,000 to 8,000, and the only variable is if you're putting granite in or not, right?
It's really 15 to 20. So I mean, that part is just getting real with what things cost. Now there are things you can do to pare down, which we're always exploring, and I think that's ultimately what differentiates a lot of the groups. But the construction side, I mean, that's where the sausage is made.
Yeah.
I mean, to give you an idea, we're, also beta testing things, right? So we're doing occupied turns at some of our deals. Like we ordered a large scope of materials from China, all prefabbed, countertops, all this kind of stuff that has come over that we waited, 6 months for the slow boat to get here.
Right.
But we spent all those 6 months, and then now we're going to renovate 50% of the units in 90 days, which is, absurd. We're talking about a 376 unit property that half of them are going to get upgraded in a quarter.
Yeah, that's insane. We have a client, we sold them a deal in the market down here, and they renovated 150 units in 12 months, all occupied renovations. And they were the first one that we'd seen do that. I mean, they just, and nobody else really had the stones to try and pull that off, frankly.
Yeah, and it's not very prevalent, but one thing that separates our firm a little bit from others is we're looking in a lot of these peripheral markets to major markets, and we're buying from owners that a lot of them are the original developer from the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
And so it's not uncommon for us to buy a deal and it have avocado green appliances with shag carpet. So like you have no other option but to renovate the deals. But it's really satisfying to see the before and after on a lot of these deals, and bringing them into modern times. But it's the construction side of it. It's something that we spend a great deal of time on.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're buying. If you're buying some of these deals from the original developer, it sounds like most of what you're doing are typically heavy lifts, exterior and interior, like full renovations.
Yeah, we are. So, I would say that the average deal profile of those types of deals we bought last year, we would go out and buy, 100 to 300 unit deals that were, the rent rolls averaged $600 to $850. And we would go in and renovate the units and take the rent roll up to $1,100, $1,200.
Okay.
So, and that's through renewals, maybe where you're not doing as much of the interiors, but I think on average across our portfolio, we probably renovated 30% of the units last year, to give you perspective.
Okay. And what's the newest deal that you've bought?
Vintage wise?
Yeah.
So This is my other favorite deal we bought last year. That was my least favorite deal when we were buying it. James had the most conviction over this deal, and I was just like, I just don't see it. Like, it's a fine deal, but I didn't think it was like one that you need to load the boat on. And James had such conviction over it, and he had so much conviction that he then let me run operations for it as soon as we bought it. And I said, okay, if this is what you want to do and you want me to buy in, then we'll run it the way I think. And scared the shit out of James. We took it from 100% occupancy. The whole property was month-to-month leases. This is a 1990s deal that we bought in Greenville, North Carolina. 100% occupied, 20-plus year owner, all the markings. Average rent roll was what,
$575.
$575.
Wow. Original developer.
Original developer. So he lets me take over. I noticed all the month-to-month tenants at the whole property and our full market rates without doing anything to the property. So we went from 100% occupancy to 50% occupancy in 60 days, but our NOI stayed the same, right? Because we doubled people's rent. So literally they were so far below market, there was 100% increase.
Wow.
And we kept half of the people. So the property literally had the same NOI with half the people. And we were able to then go backfill and renovate the rest of those units. And we've taken it it'll have its birthday, coming up in June?
July. Yeah.
July. And it's now pre-leased to 92% and trending up from there. And we have absolutely crushed the deal. So the deal I had no conviction on, James is totally right. And we crushed it.
Yeah. Well, we had millions of dollars of our own money in it. So we were very focused on it. But yeah, I mean, that deal, it averaged $575 when we took over. I think the rent roll average is about $950, and it's well located. We've done it in a year. So yeah, that's a success story. That one, believe it or not, was pretty easy. Once you went in and actually noticed everybody, dropped the vacancy, but it's not always quite that easy. But a lot of people would look at us and say, you're crazy. You're going and buying in Greenville, North Carolina. It's, where the hell is that? And we just had, there's things you look at as a broker, right? You look at the comp set, you know that, hey, this deal over here, it's nicer, but the chunk rent is way higher. So can I kind of be a low cost provider to that deal?
Yeah.
So there's some things that I think that just reps show you, and it's a little bit contrarian, but it's proved to work out so far.
We always talk about being a car payment below that other superior property, right?
Right.
And if you're a full car payment, $300, $400, $250, whatever it is, it's probably more like $400 or $500 these days. But if you're a full car payment below, that's going to move the needle in terms of people saying, well, we're going to stay here and go with the and if you can build a nice product or renovate to a nice degree. So do you guys go in and maybe look at some of the Class A comps or Class B plus comps in the market and try and incorporate some components of that product or amenities into your renovation?
Yeah, so I think that we're always trying to be where the trend is or ahead of the trend, right? So I would say a standard kind of interior for us consists of new LVT flooring, new stainless or black appliances, new lighting fixtures, new plumbing fixtures, new interior paint, trim, backsplash. Now we'll either do hard surface countertops on most of the deals we're doing, or we'll do a sprayed resurfaced countertop. But really, I mean, it's not like we're recreating the wheel, right? Like that's been the package that that's what everyone has done, right? But it's the subtle things. It's the moving to the bronze cabinet pulls instead of the stainless. It's moving to the whites, the blues, the grays, and away from the cherry cabinets. Just as time has moved on, we're trying to just give the units a fresh kind of current feel.
And that's all $6,000, right? All of it's $6,000, right?
We have yet to be able to do anything less than 10, but it's funny because everyone gets so caught up in like the actual interiors of the units. Like, oh, you got to do the stainless lighting or the track lighting.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the tenant wants to go in that unit and feel like they have a nice place to live, and then it's empty. They want to feel like they're not getting just totally screwed on the rent.
Yeah.
And I think our units accomplish that ultimately. But we are looking at comps in the area, touring them while we're under contract, seeing what new construction is doing, seeing what our competitors are doing, even if they're not doing anything, and how we can be a cut above them, and community amenities.
Yeah. No, and I think the biggest thing that we do right, look, I wish I could tell you that we are out there like some of our competitors painting day one and throwing up brand new paint schemes. But I'll tell you what we do a really, really good job on is day one, making it a safe, clean, livable environment for all our tenants, because people notice that who are your residents today. And that's why I think, most of our portfolio, we renew at a higher than market level. We renew at a much higher rent than where they were at. I mean, our average trade outs on some of these deals, 30, 40, 50%. Like we get massive trade outs, but it's because we come in and we clear out the bugs. We open back up the pools. We do all these things that we can hit the ground running, and our actual tenants get their lives improved, which then they're willing to pay more rent because they've been waiting for this leak to get fixed, doing work orders. Doing all that stuff is so much more impactful than painting. I walk through and talk to some of these tenants. They're like, hey, I'm glad you painted it, but that doesn't really impact them in their day-to-day life. And that's what hits them at home.
Multifamily Method is powered by Capstone Companies, the largest privately owned multifamily investment sales brokerage nationwide. Capstone Companies provides dedicated coverage to both primary and secondary markets throughout the Southeast, Mid-Atlantic, and Midwest regions of the United States. Whether buying, selling, or refinancing, Capstone Companies is here to help. Simply put, Capstone is expertise, experience, extra mile. If you're interested in having Capstone provide a complimentary opinion of value on your multifamily asset, please visit us at capstone-companies.com.
Are you doing any fun amenities, community features, stuff like that may be a little bit different than what you see in some other workforce type apartments?
Yeah, so we like to do, community engagement is big, I feel like. And that's something that everyone says, but it's very difficult to actually implement. But whenever we take over a property, we like to do some type of event. So the one in Greenville, North Carolina, we had taco trucks come out kind of on the first week of ownership and give everyone dinner and dessert and kind of, a flyer about what's to come. We've had, things like that go a long way with residents.
Yeah, we also we're doing a crazy thing right now at one of our properties in Fayetteville. We bought a bunch of gifts for Mother's Day for tenants who forgot to buy their mom something, like a last minute thing. So we kind of told people hey, stop by. We got some chocolates and some stuff for you to give to your mom because we know that you forgot to pick it up. So we'll be available Saturday morning as kind of a drive-by service for people to be able to grab something that they forgot.
What do I got? About 10, 12 days to get taken care of? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it's time to order now.
Yeah, but we do dog parks, we do playgrounds, we do outside work.
We did a big community garden at one of our deals in Raleigh where our manager actually built it. So he appointed a couple of people from the community to be the garden leaders. So he and these garden leaders started this whole project. We paid for it all. And they went out and built it themselves. We didn't hire some contractor to go build some fancy garden. It actually looks very unsightly as it sits today, but it's theirs. It's what they did, they put it together and things like that. We, spend a lot of time surveying our tenant base to say, hey, do you guys want, an AstroTurf, soccer field, or would you prefer us, focus on a bigger dog park, or what's important to you? And I think so many people just get this preconceived notion of rinse and repeat. We're just going to do the same dog park everywhere. We're going to do the same, playground set. And for us, every community has a different feel to it and, a vibe, and you want to kind of mesh that.
We have a broker in the market, I'm not going to name any names down here, who on every value add deal that he has, he will literally take the same after imagery and renderings and slap it on the community. So you got the before pictures, and then it's all the exact same stuff. That's an overlay of the amenities and finishes and paint scheme and carports and the whole nine. And it's probably been the same stuff for a couple of years now without an update. But to your point, it's it's not just the dog park and and new pool furniture that moves the needle, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Now, people are going to have to become more creative, with where we're at in the cycle. I mean, the value add, I mean, it's very uncommon to find like a first gen value add deal, right?
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I haven't seen one I can't tell you the last time I saw one.
So,
right?
I mean, that's what we're targeting. It's very hard to find in these small markets,
Yeah.
but, just being creative and how you're differentiating yourself from your competitors. And it's not always the actual interior, the exterior, the amenities. A lot of times it's like just having good people in the office that are responsive to their needs, the easy things, doing the easy things well. That's what we always tell the management company. But it's communications big with the residents, just doing those simple things.
So how have you ID'd some of the smaller markets? Are you looking at any sort of specific demo data or, employment statistics or, I mean, we joked the first call we had, I'm an investor in Rocky Mount, in a deal in Rocky Mount. If you remember, telling you guys that. So like, and that was just, why my wife asked me, why are we investing in Rocky Mount, North Carolina? And I said, cause I trust the jockey,
Yeah.
So I mean, but how did you guys ID Rocky Mount or some of the other markets that you've invested in?
I think that what we're ultimately looking for are supply constrained markets,
Okay.
near major markets. Population has to be at least 50,000. We prefer it to be over 100,000.
Okay.
We're looking for median household incomes of $40,000 or greater.
Okay.
Single family residential around it to be, $300,000 and greater, where you can. But just, a lot of these markets, like I said earlier, are more contrarian by nature, like Rocky Mount. But there's literally no construction on the horizon, and occupancy rates are very, very high there. So we've been able to push rents tremendously and stay full. But at the same time, we buy in the primary markets. We own in Dallas, Fort Worth, and Raleigh. But I think that there's a ton more competition in those markets. You have a much more sophisticated seller in those markets.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that there's a little bit more low-hanging fruit in some of these markets that are, say, within 1 hour of a primary market.
Right. And the thing that's sort of contrarian is, sometimes sort of depressed rents is a barrier to entry, right? For new supply, right? So I mean, you can't build something today, at least in Florida. I'm sure it's the same in Texas and North Carolina. Yeah, you really can't build anything unless if your rents are under $1.80 to $2 really a square foot, right? And a lot of these these smaller markets have a good amount of workforce stock at $1.65, $1.55, 65 rents, and there's just not going to be a ton of new supply coming in there, right?
Right.
So then you have to have the now it's about building community and keeping it fresh and updated and looking good and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of deals we buy are right around $1 a foot or less, 90 cents a foot to $1 a foot. And we're trying to take them up. We're trying to take them up to $1.30, $1.50.
30, yeah. That's a winning strategy if you can execute. Yeah, cool. Any thoughts on development going forward? I mean, you've got a director of construction, so you're part of the way there.
No, well, I'm glad that you asked, because this gets me to say my new favorite phrase, which is niches get riches, right?
Okay.
We will stick in our niche of doing what we're really good at doing, what we've transacted on. And as corny as that sounds, it's like we want to be the experts in hyper-focused in what we know we can be successful in. So many, you talk about groups that we've seen be very successful and have changed their mentality of what they do and have pivoted to development. And ultimately, we think that staying to course, with our pure thesis is what we want to do. That's why we don't buy new lease up deals. That's why we don't play in areas that we don't know. I can tell you, James and I know inside and out workforce housing, and our capabilities there are what's going to lead us to be, long-term very successful in that niche. Because a lot of people have shied away from it. They've seen expenses balloon, or they, a lot of the, newer syndication groups have gotten taken back by insurance or taxes or whatever. And these are not new songs to us, right? We plan, if we bought something that had a chiller or boilers, we're planning for these CapEx expenses going into it, because we've seen the horror stories. We've lived it. We've sold, financed, done whatever. And we can be really good in our niche. And there's just not a reason for us to kind of deviate from that, as long as the business still plays out.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine us getting into development, because I could not confidently tell someone to invest with me if I was building my first building.
Fair point.
So that's kind of how I think about it. But at the same time, we are opportunistic. Could it evolve over time into, we've toyed around the idea of, well, what about like manufactured housing? And so I think it would be in the same vein of like workforce housing, but for the time being, we're full and focused on kind of our core strategy.
Yeah. What's the plan to, from a GP perspective, what's the plan to realize some of your promote going forward? Are you going to be looking to sell? Or are you going to be looking to refinance? Is there, I would guess you've got some floating rate exposure, and what's the plan on that going forward? Just sort of how you plan to kind of hit to the next stage where you're having to round trip these deals.
Yeah, I would say that, for us, first and foremost was building the company, right?
Right.
Getting the company built. And, obviously the market is extremely tumultuous right now, and who knows where we're going to be in 6 months from now.
Sure.
We think we'll be in a better environment 9 months from now, but we'll see. From a promote standpoint, most of our deals are set up to be, 3 to 5 year holds. So fortunately, we're still in the early phases of the business cycle, maybe 1 year in on our oldest assets. I think that, we're pretty entrepreneurial here on looking at refinances, sales, recapitalizations. I would say that probably 30% of our portfolio, maybe 30 or 40%, was on fixed rate bank debt. So those deals are doing really well right now. And, hopefully we're going to be distributing on some of those deals at the end of this year. And then we do have, probably 60%, 70% of our portfolio on floating rate. But fortunately, we knew the game we were in when we were buying them. We knew that interest rates were rising. So we bought caps that were appropriate. We bought a cap last year at,
we had some investors come to us and ultimately say, like, look, we're terrified of where these rates are. We don't want negative leverage, but we'll do the deal. And they were large check writers. So in essence, instead of, paying in and funding, interest reserves to buy down our rate, we bought a way in the money cap that became even more in the money as time progressed, right? We effectively fixed that at a 5% rate for 2 years at, probably, I don't know, half of the cost that it would have been at the peak mania of now, where, we're facing another increase here soon. That rate cap, and from a notional value, just keeps, increasing in value.
Something crazy. I was looking, we're writing our investor reports right now, our quarterly reports to go out. And I was looking at one of the deals we have, and it was one of our first deals. It was our first deal. And we bought it with a 1 year cap, interest rate cap, because that was the market we were in back in, early 2022. No one was thinking to buy long-term rate caps. So anyways, we're coming up on the expiration of that cap, and we were running the math, and we've moved that rent roll 30% in 1 year, the lease rent roll. So it's been a huge success for us. And the deal can damn near float freely floating 9% rate. So,
so that's interesting, because I've had these conversations, and when talking to buyers, everybody's saying, well, when are we going to start to see some deals? When are we going to start to see some deals? And the reality is that, the majority of, but for maybe the last 4 months, sort of probably when you guys started buying, but like maybe a little bit, maybe a little bit after that, maybe starting Q2 of last year, when rent growth started slowing down. Like if you bought in middle of 21, you've seen 30% rent growth from the time you acquired the asset. And even though your interest rate sucks right now, and you're feeling some pain, and then, in Florida, you're feeling some insurance pain with the interest rate pain, you're still cash flowing, because you're far exceeding any pro forma that you could have imagined to put together on these assets. When rents, we sold a deal in June of 21 where the rents were $1,500, and now they're $2,000, and they're just turning leases.
Yeah, it's a capital markets problem, at least in the real estate world.
Yeah.
That's what it is. I mean, the operations are strong. Rent growth is still strong, at least in the markets we're in. There's certainly markets where rent growth is softening or going backwards. But I think that, like I said, most of the pain is from people that bought in early to mid 2021 and they have an interest rate cap coming due and they don't have the money reserved. And you see a lot of people bashing folks like that. It's really not, everyone was floating rate. No one thought that they'd have to go buy $1 million rate cap, and that just wasn't in people's business plan. So
Yeah.
I think it's just people are just going to have to hunker down and hang on, and just operate very, very well, and just pray that Powell starts cutting at some point in the next year.
No, and that's really what we're going to see here. In terms of distress, all you're going to see, everyone had the same debt mentality. Yeah, like some people took less leverage, some people took more, but ultimately everybody had the basic same debt that was available, unless you're just a long-term fixed rate holder, which you're in a totally different bucket, and you probably missed the wave of being able to sell at the peak too. So take that for what it's worth, right? Everybody has its ups and downs, but everybody's in the same scenario. So what we're going to see distress in from our side is just poor operators, right? It all boils down to the jockey, like you talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And, if you're riding with the right jockey, you're going to be able to get through this. If you're not, then you probably weren't going to get through it anyway. I think this just amplifies the problem. Your 1-1 that they were going to give you after 3 years of telling you we tried our best is now probably, a wipeout, right? That's the scenario. It's not that, anybody took the craziest debt available, because everybody's thinking about the same thing. We give or take.
Yeah.
I think everyone can hang on for 6 months, maybe even a year, but we're approaching that now. And general partners generally, I mean, if you're a young syndicator, young in your career, and you're just putting together your first few deals, I mean, you can't afford to go buy $4 or $5 million rate cap. So if your investors won't,
or get a capital call, right?
Yeah, they won't capital call. So I think those are going to be more of the opportunities. I personally don't see multifamily just going backwards on a large scale.
Right. All right. Well, we typically finish up with some rapid fire, but before we do that, you guys have such a unique story that I think it'd be cool to just have you give advice to, I guess, a broker who wants to jump ship and enter the principal side, or maybe you work for a principal or a developer and you want to jump ship and start your own shop, or you're an asset manager, whatever it is. If you're in the business but want to take that leap of faith and go start your own platform, maybe just, a piece of advice from each of you on somebody who's having those thoughts right now.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that, there's never going to be the perfect time, right? You're always going to have reasons to want to stay comfortable and stay in the job you're in. I think from a broker's perspective, you look at all these guys making money hand over fist on this bull run we've been in, right? Where basically if you just bought a deal and owned it for 12 months, you go make a rip on the back end and sell it for 2x and make a $2 million promote.
Yeah.
It is 100% not that easy right now. The people that will make money from this point forward are going to have to be good operators. So I guess what I would say is it's not as easy as it looked in the run up. It comes with its own set of challenges. I would say I would only advise it to someone that felt, in their heart of hearts that they had a desire to, be an entrepreneur and have their own company. But I do think it's very rewarding. I do think that there's still a ton of opportunity in the market. And I think that the best time to build a company is to buy when others are fearful, as cliche as Warren Buffett's quote is.
Right.
So, I think that now is as good a time for anybody.
Yeah, I would say that the best thing that you can do if you're considering is get a really rich friend and have them join partnership with you. But no, in all jokiness, I would it's so funny when James and I said, start telling people we're going to do this. I had probably half the people I talked to said, well, don't do it with James. Don't do it with anybody. You don't want a partner. You got to share half of it. You got to, half your promote's going to
you better have a partner.
And that's exactly it, man. I will tell you, like we talked about earlier, entrepreneurship, we get punched in the face every single day.
Yeah.
And you need somebody, right? It's not, you can take it home, you can do whatever, but in order to really be successful and grow something, I think there's a lot to be said with, who you partner with. And yeah, you don't want to go, do something with the wrong partner, but find somebody who complements your skill set day in and day out. Although James and I both worked in the same type of mentality of both salespeople, we are totally yin and yang. I fit a lot of the shortfalls he has, and he picks up a lot of the slack on the things that I'm not good at. And I think in order to really grow a successful company, I would tell people, find someone who complements your skill set, latch on, and, go attack it.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Having a partner is key. I look at some of these groups where it's just a one-man show, and, I can't imagine that in the market we're in, because, just not being able to have someone to talk through stuff with, and just bounce ideas off of. I mean, we like to think of it as growing a bigger pie, right? If we do this thing right, the pie will be big enough where everyone gets fed. So I think just going into it with that mentality, that's served us well so far.
Yeah. And
we look at it the same way from a brokerage team too. Like just, more guys and bring in more deals, right? And everybody gets fed. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Well, guys, it was great to meet you here today, and really enjoyed the conversation. It's definitely an interesting, story and trajectory for your firm. And I think your story is one that'll resonate with a lot of people in the industry, because everybody thinks about sort of jumping ship and starting their own thing. And so to hear the real life stories from it, although I will say, it doesn't seem like you guys have had a ton of like major obstacles, at least not through the conversation. It's probably not as easy as it sounds, but like for anybody thinking about doing, these guys made it sound incredibly easy, and it's probably not that.
And don't forget about the $26 million check that walked on a Friday, and then we have 30 days to close. Okay.
Or the lender, or the lender that issued loan docs and the next day told us he couldn't do the loan. So I mean, there.
All right, we sugarcoated for you guys.
There's a bunch.
Yeah.
There's a
All
bunch.
right. Well, so go find rich friends is the moral of the story.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, congrats on all your success to date, guys, and really enjoyed the conversation. And if you want to buy some, value add deals in Florida, you know who to call.
Perfect. We appreciate the time.
Look forward to it.
Thank you for listening to Multifamily Method. If you enjoyed today's episode, please give us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps our podcast get discovered by other savvy investors like yourself. Subscribe to Multifamily Method for free on your podcast platform of choice. Find out more about Capstone Companies at capstone-companies.com. Multifamily Method is executive produced by Capstone Companies. Audio production for the podcast provided by Andy Go of Gojo Studios, and video production by Yash Mistry of Mystery Projects.